recovery.
My name is Chris Peterson. I'm 29 years old. I'm the Director of Operations for Evolve Life Centers. I've been with Evolve Life Centers since the houses have opened. And I started out as a house manager and moved on to a career with Evolve Life Centers as Director of Operations. I ended up at Evolve because of their mission. I had been in recovery houses for over a year at that point and had seen what they had to offer and listened to what Evolve had to offer and what their plan was with where they're going in the future, and I wanted to be part of it. I started out with a normal family. I mean, I loved acceptance, all that, and was an athlete, was a University of Maryland recruit, played football, and somewhere along the line I veered off that path of college and everything else that was originally the plan and important kind of went to the wayside to drugs. And I followed that life and the plan that drugs had for me instead of my plan. When I was a teenager in school, I was always a partier. I went out with all the older kids. I partied, I drank, I did everything that I guess normal teens do, but I started breaking bones and started getting prescribed prescription painkillers, and those painkillers became an everyday thing after a while. You know, I was a weekend warrior, as they say, for a while with everything under the sun, all the normal party drugs. But then once it became a daily habit of prescription painkillers and I found myself withdrawing, then that's when it really took over. My first prescription was due to a broken bone from partying, and I broke my bone while drunk. And I broke my leg. I fell off a balcony, and at the University of Delaware, I fell off a balcony and broke my leg, and that's when I got prescribed the harder drugs. I had broken bones before, and I'd broken everything, but this was the first time that they gave me a long-term pain management instead of just take this for 10 days, you know. And I was on pain management for 8 years probably. And then it turned into manipulating doctors and getting way more than I needed, and my bones were fixed, but I wasn't. So I just kept going to doctors and shopping around, and that eventually led to what most people's stories are with prescription painkillers, and I wound up doing heroin because once your supply's cut off and the doctors are no longer prescribing, which they normally aren't doing, you know, with strong morals. They have other motives. They're pill mills pretty much. And once they started a war per se on the doctors, then the next best thing was heroin, and it was cheaper, and because I couldn't afford those same drugs that I was getting for free from a doctor on the street. Becoming physically addicted to painkillers and opiates, that led me to, I always knew it was wrong. You know, I always knew that I was meant for more and I was supposed to be doing something different, and this physical addiction had now had me in these grips that I couldn't seem to break free of, which led me to trying other routes of treatment, you know, via the methadone clinic or whatever it may be. And the methadone clinic, it took me to a very low place, although I might have been saving my paychecks. I was just in a horrible place. And then to get off of the methadone, because I didn't know any other way, that's when I went back to my drug of choice, and that led me to heroin. But what heroin and all the drugs really, but heroin really, it brought me to my knees. At one point I had lost my son, who now is my world, but at that point heroin was. And I had lost my son. I had no contact with my family. It wasn't the length of time, but it was how intense it was. I wasn't out there away from my family and my child for too long, but it was long enough, and it brought me from that good home and good family and good morals and values and all the love in the world to by myself in a motel room with nobody and nothing. And that's when I realized that I needed help. During the worst part of my addiction, there was no more friends or family. I had nobody. I was alone in a motel room. But in that process, it tore my family apart. My mom, she had to kick me out in order for me to do something different. She had to reach out to some of her family members that have been through the same thing. But my mom is probably the most loving and caring person that I know. And for her to have to kick me out of the house and to cut ties with me and take my son away, it was for my best interest, but it tore my family apart. My parents split up because of the stress. A lot of stuff happened. All my friends, all those people that went off to college, the route that I was supposed to take, I didn't stay in contact with them anymore. And there was just a few select people that I even talked to, and that was just based around drugs. I always say that 90% of my day was spent thinking about quitting drugs. 10% that was before I had any drugs. And that was in the morning. And then all I could think about was drugs. I would wake up and obsess over the fact that I needed drugs until I got them. And then it was just despair and loneliness and pain. That's all there was in that life. When I realized I needed help, I reached out to my local health department, and they pointed me in the direction of a treatment facility that was state-run, because at that point I had no money, I had no insurance, I had nothing, and they helped me get into a treatment facility. And in that treatment facility, they told me some key suggestions, one being a recovery house or a halfway house. And I was just ready. I was so pained up at that point that I was willing and ready to do whatever they told me to do. So I switched areas. I got rid of the cell phone. I got rid of everybody that I was in contact with at that point. I cut off and I left my area, and I came down to this area to find a better way of life, because they told me it was here and told me this is what I needed to do, so this is what I did. The pain of using almost left immediately as soon as, because the type of drug that I was on, I needed to detox off of it. And when I went into treatment, all of my raw emotions came back. Everything that I was supposed to feel over those years came back, and while in treatment, I was a basket case. And that's part of the reason why I was willing to do something different and take some suggestions and go to a recovery house in a new area after treatment. But I'd say that the physical pain of the withdrawal took about 2 weeks. And then as soon as I got into this new area, this new way of life, got plugged in a program and with the people in my recovery house, it was just, that pain of using was gone. And I saw every single day that there was a new way of life, and all I had to do was just do what they told me to do, and things would be okay.